This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, and in accordance with Governor Pritzker's disaster proclamation, this meeting will be held virtually. The total number of people who can gather at City Hall is limited, but we do have an option for people to come in person if they have anything to comment, or they can send written comments by email. So let's start with the roll call, please.
Mayor Brummel?
Here.
Alderman Anderson?
Here.
Alderman Ashour?
Here.
Alderman Berry?
Here.
Alderman Davalos?
Here.
Alderman Goodman?
Here.
Alderman Kerschel?
Here.
Alderman Widener?
I think you're muted.
Here.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
He's excused.
City Administrator
All right.
Copley?
Here.
And Assistant City Administrator White?
Here.
Finance Director Dahlgren?
Here.
Thank you. Police Chief Toronto?
Here.
City Clerk Clark? You're muted as well. I hear her. I know she's here. And Deputy Clerk Ravetti. We have
Yes, we have a quorum. Will those who are able stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Those of you at home can just follow along silently. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This is the time we set aside for citizens' comments. Are there any people at City Hall who wish to make a citizen's comment now?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Have we received any written comments by email?
I did not.
All right. Is there anyone on the line who has called in who wishes to make a public comment at this time? Okay, I don't hear anyone, and I don't see any people who have called in, actually. So that's different. Let's move on to officials and staff comments, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't have anything at this time other than to encourage everyone who's participating in the Mayor's Fitness Challenge to get out there and sweat. It's summertime out there. Get on the bike, ride, do some gardening. I already have several people who are beating me quite handily, so I'm going to work at getting some more minutes. But we're having some fun, and I encourage everybody to get out there and get some minutes.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson.
I have no comments tonight, except that I did a lot of farm work, so I'm trying to keep up, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
No comments tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
I have no comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Davalos. You're muted, Kathy.
Sorry. I read in the weekly report that the police department is going to put on a second shredding and electronics recycling event on September 18th. So just wanted to note that for people that keep it on their calendars. Thank you.
Thank you. My comment is along the same lines. I attended the Public Works open house this week, which seemed like a success to me, and someone from the Scarce DuPage Recycling gave me a handout about upcoming recycling events, since there's such interest in the community, and wanted to have me announce the nearest one that's coming up to us, which is June 5th in West Chicago at 9 a.m. to noon in the Metro parking lot across from City Hall. Paper shredding will be available then. So if people didn't get their paper shredded at the most recent police recycling event, there is another one coming up soon nearby, and there will be more. You can look on the Scarce website, www.scarce.org. There seem to be events every couple of weeks through most of the summer in different parts of the county. I also attended a wonderful grand opening last week for Little Friends, a school and charity, I believe, for students with special needs, which should be a great asset to our community. And the mayor was there and gave some welcoming remarks. And I got great feedback from the community about how welcoming he was and how glad they are to be in our community. So that was great to hear. Let's move on to Alderman Krischel
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
and Alderman Widener.
I have no comments this evening, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any staff who wanted to make a comment now, let me know. Okay, we'll start with the business of the meeting then. Item F1, which is an informational update on illegal fireworks enforcement, and we'll go to Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and good evening, Mayor and members of the council. As we do every year, we will be beginning our fireworks enforcement initiative beginning June 1st. And this is a multifaceted initiative that we put forward that has to do with education and enforcement, and also to reinforce the issue of safety for all of our residents. So if you live in Warrenville and you happen to be stopped for a traffic violation, you're going to be given an informational pamphlet that will contain the information about what is legal and what is illegal within the city of Warrenville, as well as the fine structure for violations. I believe it starts at $250. It can go up to $500 depending on the number of violations that occur for an individual per instance. The other issue is that we have a number, and I'm sure you've all read them, of injuries that occur to people, their hands, their fingers, their faces, their eyes, that come from illegal fireworks. Many of these charges, which are not regulated by any federal authority, often have the power of military ordnance, as well as you can't be sure of the fuse time on these. So even though you buy them for what you think is a legitimate business, and it is legal in other states, not in Illinois, if you choose to use these things, you put yourself at great risk. They're also very harmful to people that have post-traumatic stress disorder, that suffer from anxiety. Pets, young children become very frightened by these. We noticed an uptick last year, and I believe that this was due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the lack of fireworks displays the years prior to that. Warrenville has been very good neighbors and have gone along with this. And what we're asking you to do this year, as there will be a fireworks display put on July 3rd, is please be a good neighbor. Please go out and be considerate of your neighbors, other people in the community, for your safety and the safety of your children. Please do not use illegal fireworks. If you do choose to do so and you are caught, we will indeed issue a citation, and you will have to go through the adjudication process if you wish to contest it. So that's all I have on that, Madam Chairman.
Okay, this is an informational only item, but let's take a moment in case any aldermen have particular questions. Instead of going through the list, let's just let anyone speak up who wants to ask the chief any questions. All right, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
We will move to item number 2 then, the consideration of the contract renewal for the City Prosecutor Services with Christine Charkowitz. And again, that's Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Christine Sharkowitz, who has served as our city attorney for the adjudication process, no, excuse me, strike that, who has served as our city attorney for a traffic court at House Court in Wheaton, and also any type of city ordinance violations that go through the House Court process for several years. She does an excellent job. Again, I believe this is her 4th or 5th year as our prosecutor. Her contract is up for renewal, which will begin June 1st and runs till the end of May. You can see in the backup material, and there's also a schedule of fines in the a schedule of fees in the summary, that there has been no increase in her fee structure. The staff would recommend that we continue to retain Ms. Sharkowitz, as she's an excellent attorney and has done a great job for the city.
Okay, I believe the weekly memo notes that she began in 2015. So I guess it's about 6 years. That's great.
Right.
All right, let's begin with Alderman Anderson. Any questions or comments?
None from me, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Ashour.
Nope, I'm good with this.
Thank you, Alderman Berry.
I have no questions, no comments.
Thank you, Alderman Davalos.
I have nothing tonight on this. Thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing. Alderman Krischel.
Nothing for me either. Thank you.
Thank you, and Alderman Widener.
Nothing for me. Thank you for the information, Chief.
Okay. I would entertain a motion.
This is Alderman Berry. I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council approve the contract renewal for city prosecutor services with attorney Christine Sharkowitz for the period of June 1, 2021 through May 31, 2022.
Second, Alderman Ashour.
We have a motion by Alderman Berry and a second by either Alderman Davalos or Alderman Ashour, whichever you like.
Give it to Alderman Ashour.
Can we have a roll call vote?
Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman Davalos?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll move to item number 3, the consideration of a request to dispose of surplus city property utilizing propertyroom.com. Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members of the council, the police department currently has a number of unclaimed items in our evidence storage, which have either been unclaimed by the owner, awarded to the court after adjudication, or they no longer serve a city need. In the past, we have utilized the services of propertyroom.com for the online auctions to dispose of the surplus property, generate some revenue for the city, which in turn goes back into the general fund. Included in your agenda backup materials tonight, you will find a memo from Deputy Chief Ken Dawson seeking the authorization for the disposal of the city-owned property. Exhibit A, which is a list of the items to be auctioned using propertyroom.com. The draft city ordinance relative to Exhibit A, which authorizes the disposition of personal property owned by the city. The proceed division from these auctions will be returned to the city, and the city will receive 50% of the auction sale price for any item sold up to the first $1,000 and 75% of the auction sale price for items sold over the first $1,000. The remaining percentages are kept by propertyroom.com as a service fee. What they do is they will come out, they will photograph the items in question, they will list them on their website, they will conduct the online auctions, they will accept the remittance for payment from the person that is making the purchase, and then send those remittances to the city. It's the staff recommendation that we would approve this and accept the services of propertyroom.com. We've used them for a number of years, and we found them to run a very professional business that serves the need of disposing of these items.
Thank you, Chief. We'll go through the council for comments or questions. Alderman Anderson.
Sounds like a good plan. No questions.
Alderman Ashour. Alderman Ashour.
I'm sorry, no comment.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Berry.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderman Davalos.
No questions, thanks.
My only question has to do with the wedding ring in the list. That's very sad to see there. I mean, we often have jewelry in lists like this, but a wedding ring, that I'm sure there's some sad story associated with that. It's too bad we're not able to find more of these owners to return some of these items. That's my only comment. Alderman Krischel.
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Widener.
We've used this service numerous times before. I have no questions. I think they do deliver a good service to the city and the police department. Thank you.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion.
Alderman Davalos, I'd like to recommend the City Council approve an ordinance authorizing the disposal of city-owned property through an auction conducted by propertyroom.com.
Second, Alderman Anderson.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote?
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman Berry?
Aye.
Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Davalos?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, consideration to purchase 2 replacement police vehicles through the state contract. Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the City Council. Before you will see our request, which was approved in the FY 2022 budget in the Capital Maintenance and Replacement Program to purchase 2 vehicles for the police department. These will replace Squad 217 and Squad 216. Okay, both of these have run to their agreed upon service life. We had been budgeted and approved to seek a 3rd vehicle. However, we're going to hold off on that as this vehicle would be used as a community service officer vehicle, and their production line at the Ford plant is not up for the manufacture of those vehicles currently. But what we are seeking to purchase right now would be 2 2021 Ford Explorer utility police interceptors, and the price for those 2 vehicles is $66,612. The base price being $32,094. There's an additional $1,212 per vehicle in factory options. And included in your agenda backup material is a memo from Deputy Chief Jacobson, which itemizes the replacement costs, as well as a copy of the State of Illinois contract number 152, which would be the state contract we would purchase these under. Just so that you're aware, these vehicles right now that we're asking to purchase are gasoline-driven vehicles. They're not hybrid vehicles. We looked at those. Those are running approximately $1,500 more than the strictly gasoline-powered vehicles. And we have not seen a demonstrated reliability factor that we could be confident in recommending those for police service on a 24-hour basis. So the committee action would be that the staff recommends the purchase of these vehicles, and the total cost on the state contract would be $66,612. And I would be able to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you. We will start with Alderman Anderson.
Chief, just one question. I assume there's some residual value on the two vehicles that we're turning in. What happens to those?
Yeah, they would either be, we would use Obanoff auctioneers to auction one of them. The second vehicle we would be turning over, and when that time comes, we'll have to come to the city council for approval of it, is to convert that for the emergency management agency to use.
Okay, no other questions.
Alderman Ashour.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Berry.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Davalos.
Yeah, it's just a clarification about the hybrid issue. So is the issue that you don't want to run out of fuel, or I don't know how all these hybrids work, but
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm just finding out information here.
What I'm saying is I don't know of a fleet of police vehicles that runs on E85 and then can switch back and forth to gasoline in the event that it's needed to happen. There's some concern that I may have that recently saw on the East Coast there was a shortage of gasoline. I don't know if this would happen where this would happen with E85, which I think would probably be a fuel that would, what do I want to say, be regulated first before to be normal unleaded gasoline. And my first priority is to make sure that we have vehicles that we can put out there on the street reliably 24 hours a day and make sure that we're able to fuel those. I do not believe with the contract, and Finance Director Dahlstrom, correct me please if I'm wrong, I don't believe in the contract we have with DuPage County that when we use their fuel pumps up there on Mack Road, I do not believe that they have E85. I think it's regular gasoline and diesel.
I believe that to be correct at this point, although I can't 100% confirm that since we haven't used that type of fuel. I know we haven't been billed for that fuel at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, well, my follow-up question to that would be twofold. First of all, most hybrid cars don't take E85, they use regular fuel. So if it's called a hybrid, it means it has an extra battery as well as the regular gas engine. If it's called a flex fuel vehicle, then it uses either regular gasoline or E85 interchangeably. So that's what those terms mean. So which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about in the contract right now that I'm looking at in the backup material. It's contract number 152, the SPC Suburban Purchasing Cooperative for the 2021 Ford Utility Police Interceptor AWD hybrid, contract 152. Hybrid motor standard, mark option 99B for gasoline motor. And then it goes into I believe it's the second, which will show you a breakdown of the mechanical issues with the hybrid and the drivetrain and the regular gasoline engine. So if I misspoke on that, I apologize.
Yeah, that's right. This vehicle doesn't have anything to do with E85. This contract is for a hybrid engine, And the default is having a hybrid, but you've chosen option 99B on the
Right.
second page to replace the standard hybrid with a gasoline-only vehicle.
That's correct. And that's about, well, it says right here, $3,165 less than if you would choose the hybrid.
That's right. So where does the 85 come in? I don't understand what you
Well,
were
I'm
talking
sorry, that was just my impression that a hybrid vehicle was one that was able to use E85 or gasoline.
That's a flex fuel vehicle. That's not what that means.
Okay,
So
thank you.
your memo states that the estimated gas mileage for the 2021 Ford Utility Police Interceptor is 24 miles per gallon. And
That's
I did
correct.
look that up, and you're correct. That's what the standard fuel mileage is, but the standard is the hybrid. So what's the fuel mileage for the car that you want to buy?
Well, I don't know. That would be the gasoline engine. So I don't have the data for that right now. What the gas engine is, I don't believe it would be that much different. And to be honest with you, in many cases, especially with law enforcement work, where you're going from low speeds to very hard acceleration and a lot of idle time, you'd probably get something less on an average than 24 mpg. But obviously, I can try, or I will, if you would like, research and see if I can get nail down a more concrete number on the miles per gallon for a gasoline engine.
Okay, because a hybrid car, in the press releases that were put out about this new police interceptor utility hybrid, were bragging that they were a 41% improvement over the current police interceptor utility equipped with a conventional gas engine. 41% difference in fuel price is pretty significant. So I think having that information, especially if you're only talking about such a trivial difference of $1,500 per vehicle, and these vehicles run full time, that could be a significant price difference over the life of the vehicles.
Well, it was 3,100.
For two vehicles, you said.
No, 3,100 per vehicle. I made a mistake when I went back and I looked the numbers. If you would go to 1 second, please.
I see the box that's checked on 99B and it says 3165, but is that for
31.
one vehicle or two vehicles?
That is for one vehicle.
Okay, well, it's one of the very few features that pays back anything, having better fuel mileage. And some of the other features that we find worthwhile don't pay for themselves at all. I think increased fuel efficiency is something that's worth pursuing when we use our vehicles as much as we do, especially when that's the default in the state contract. Those
Well,
are my comments.
I will definitely go back and see if I can get those numbers for you and provide them at a later date.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Alderman Krischel.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. I mean, I'm assuming that because this is a state contract that these vehicles are available. I know there's potential shortages of vehicles out there, so I just want to make sure that we could get these.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's due to the state contract purchase, yes.
Okay. That was my only question.
Alderman Widener.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Chief, these are street ready, or are there additional costs incurred in order to bring them into service with radio hookups and wraps and things like that?
Well, right now, they are pre-wired for the siren and the speaker, and also any type of grill lighting, which we employ. They also have the police wire harness, front and rear, which would be your overhead lights, and then any lights that would be in the rear deck of the vehicle on the rear windows. And there's also the tail lamp housing, which is wired, and that's when you'll see the wigwag when they'll go back and forth and flash. We would have to have a outside consultant that would come in, and I don't know the figure right off the top of my head. I think it's about $1,200 to $1,500 per vehicle. They install the radio. They will install the mobile data terminals and all the necessary wiring for that. And they also install the dash mounted cameras.
Is there an additional cost then to put the City of Warrenville insignias and wraps on too? And if so, how much do you estimate?
Yeah, I think that's all included in that, like $1,500 to $1,600 when we wrap those cars. And just so you know, when they're wrapped, couple of nice features about those is that it's not paint. It's actually a heat kind of tape that I guess that's the best word I can use for it, that you, when I've seen them apply it, they use like a heat gun and it actually bonds to the car. It's very easy to repair if the car's been in an accident. You don't have to paint it a different color scheme. And number two, it's very, very easy to remove, so that when we do get ready to either auction the cars or turn them over to in-city use, it doesn't look like a formally marked police car.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We need a motion for this as well.
This is Alderman Barry. I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council approve the purchase of two 2021 Ford Explorer utility police interceptor vehicles through the state of Illinois contract number 152 at a cost of $66,612.
Second,
Alderman Ashour.
Motion by Alderman Barry, second, let's say Alderman Ashour again. Clerk, can we have the roll call?
Alderman Ashour?
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Goodman?
Aye.
Alderman Widener?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Alderman Barry?
Aye.
Alderman Davalos?
Aye.
Alderman Krischel?
Aye.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Sorry, we have a motion carried.
Yeah, the motion carries. Thank you, Clerk. All right, moving on to item number 5, which is the consideration of an amendment to the AVI agreement for audiovisual upgrades. And we will go to Assistant City Administrator White.
Thank you. Last week, the City Council approved a project to replace the ceiling-mounted projector and screen with a 90-inch display. Unfortunately, after speaking to the vendor, their suppliers are no longer making 90-inch displays, and I've asked them to look further into other suppliers, and apparently 90-inch commercial displays have been discontinued and are no longer being made. The quote that they provided initially was just over a month ago, and at that time they did still have 90-inch displays available, but that has since changed. So we need to amend the motion to look at a 98-inch display, which is the next size up, and that is an additional $3,370. The other option would be the original quote of the 85-inch display, but staff is not recommending that because we think that's going to be too small for the size of the room. So staff is recommending the 98-inch display at the additional $3,370, which would make the total approved amount $31,184 instead of the $27,814 that was approved last Monday. And we are also seeking consensus direction from the committee to authorize the city administrator to sign off on the purchase of the 98-inch display prior to the next city council meeting so that we do not have a delay in getting the project completed. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson.
I have no questions. I'm supportive.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Barry.
No questions, thank you.
And Alderman Davalos.
No questions either, thank you.
Okay, I think it seems clear. Alderman Krischel.
No questions.
And Alderman Widener.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Alderman Davalos, I would like to make a motion to recommend City Council approve an additional $3,370 for the AV room upgrades project to upgrade to a 98-inch 4K display.
Second, Alderman Berry.
We have a motion and a second. Do we need any language in the motion about giving the city administrator additional signatory authority in this following week? Yes, I'm seeing yes, we do. Alderman Davalos, could you possibly amend that motion?
Yes, I'd like to amend the motion to give the Assistant City Administrator, Christina White, authority. What am I calling it?
I believe it was John, actually.
Oh, with John? Oh, I thought you said Alderman Davalos. Sorry.
No, but I mean not Christina, John.
Oh. Okay, I'd like to amend the motion to give the City Administrator the authority to what am I doing? Negotiate the contract, make the change to the contract so it can be handled immediately.
Okay, so the clerk, do you have that amendment to the motion? Does the seconder agree?
The seconder agrees.
Okay. So we have an amended motion. Can I have a roll call, clerk?
Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Alderman Widener.
Aye.
Alderman Krischel.
Aye.
Alderman Anderson.
Aye.
Alderman Davalos.
Aye.
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we will go to the consideration of amendments to the electronic sign policy. Assistant City Administrator White.
Thank you. In March 2019, the City Council approved the sign policy for the new community electronic sign that's located on the southwest corner of Butterfield and Batavia Roads. We have since amended that policy, which is included in the backup material. Some of you might recall when we originally presented the policy, we took a very conservative approach because this was the first electronic sign of its kind that we were installing and didn't know exactly what kind of requests we were going to get, how frequently, how long the messages would be from the different community groups. And so we wanted to make sure we would have enough space on the sign to accommodate all the various requests without having to turn anyone away. Over the last 2 years or so, we've gotten a lot more experience with the sign and with the community requests for the use of the sign and messaging, and we are more comfortable with allowing for longer times on the message runs from instead of a week to 30 days per request. There's still language in there that allows the city to essentially limit messages displayed if there's emergencies or things going on that we need to post on that city sign. And so there's some additional amendments included in the backup to the policy, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll start with Alderman Anderson.
No questions. Makes sense.
Alderman Ashour.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Berry.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Davalos.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. My only comment is I think some of these changes look very good. And my only question is, have we gotten any feedback on our sign from the people who've been using it so far?
Nothing specific that comes to mind. I think staff has gotten more comfortable with using the software that's associated with the sign. We get requests from a lot of different community groups to use it, so I think it's a convenient method to put information out there in addition to all the other mechanisms we have in place.
Okay. Alderman Krischel.
No questions, thanks.
And Alderman Widener.
No questions, thank you.
All right, great. Any motion forthcoming?
Alderman Davalos, I'd like to recommend the City Council approve the revised community electronic sign policy.
Second, Alderman Ashour.
Motion by Alderman Davalos, second by Alderman Ashour. Can I have a roll call, please, clerk?
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Fischel,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, clerk. All right, we are moving on to an informational discussion of the TIF projections and payback schedules. And for this one, I will go to Finance Director Dahlstrand.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Included with your backup tonight are TIF projections for both TIF number 3 and TIF number 4. The city administrator, myself, the Community and Economic Development Director, and the Public Works Director have spent a considerable amount of time on these projections going forward. The projections for TIF number 3 would have the general fund paid back by 2031. The projections for TIF number 4, which are a little more complicated because there are 2 more funds involved, because we have the general fund, the water and sewer fund, and the hotel tax fund. All have made interfund loans to the TIFs. By 2028, all 3 of those funds would be paid back if these if the projections hold true as is. These projections will be periodically updated as more current information becomes available. I would envision that the next update would come near the conclusion of the 2021 audit. That audit work will begin in July, so I would project that by the end of October or so, these would be updated to include the 2021 audited numbers. And then periodically after that, like through the budget process and future audit processes as well, these will be updated. And of course, they would be updated also at the time with when the extensions for the TIF levies are finalized as well. And we can answer any questions you might have at this point.
I want to thank you, Director Dahlstrand, for the large, extensive amount of work that went into preparing these, and the rest of staff that helped you. I know these are just preliminary, and that we by no means are expecting to end up with huge surpluses at the end of these TIFs. Perhaps you could talk about that just a bit.
Absolutely. Since these projections are very preliminary at this point, and of course, we go a long way out before, for example, TIF 4 goes to 2040. I don't think there's any of us on staff who know exactly what's going to happen between now and 2040. These are the best educated projections we could provide at this point. So we do not anticipate that by the end of this that there will be almost a $10 million surplus in that fund, because there will be plenty of projects and other things that will be identified in the years that come that the TIF funding available, certainly for TIF number 4, would be used. In TIF number 3, we have that projected surplus at almost $2.4 million. So I think with the regular updates to these projections, and as the numbers get more solid, as things get more current, these numbers will obviously change. One of the bigger things that we have in TIF number 4 that we do not yet have a complete handle on because we've not experienced before will be whatever sort of TIF of the interfund borrowing that we've discussed, which we're hiring of bringing on a financial advisor to help advise as to what sort of borrowing we need to do out in TIF number 4 to deal with the water tank and the improvements that are going out in that area. So we've built some projections into here that would have that over a 10-year span with a balloon payment at the end. We do not know yet at this point if that's how that will pan out. So those are all the things, the types of things that will be updated as we move out. So I would anticipate that as this goes, the surplus there at the end, I don't think will be there when 2040 actually arrives.
Thank you. Let's go through everyone to see what sort of discussion there is about this item. I know it's very important financially. Let's start with Alderman Anderson.
Thank you for putting this together, Finance Director. I'll probably want to spend more time. This is new math for me that I'm looking forward to learning. Maybe just two things to give some context. In TIF 3, we see in 2021 that fairly sizable uptick in revenue from 99 to 302. Just kind of curious what was the EAV, what drove that? And then secondly, on TIF 4 in 2020, we had a sizable expense. If you could just advise what the 1.6 went towards.
All right, so let me pop the screen open. Hold on just a second here. I lost my screen. Hold on just a moment. I apologize. I had it up here and somehow I closed it. So for one, we have the change in the EAV related to TIF number 3. Hold on a second. I'm trying to find that one as well. So the EAV, the incremental value that, I'm sorry, the total EAV in TIF 3 went from 9.3 million to a little over 11 million. That has a lot to do with the increase in the value of the Earhart property right here adjacent to the library with all the new homes that were built in there. It has now it has an incremental value, which is the difference between the frozen value and the current value of a little over 4.5 million, when during 2019, that incremental value was only 1.3 million. So there's that big change in that EAV related to Earhart that helped increase that revenue in TIF number 3. In TIF number 4, I'm so sorry, my computer is just not playing along with me here. And you were talking about the expenditures in TIF number 4 during 2020. I'm sorry, which year, Alderman? My apologies.
Yeah, 2020, the 1.6 million.
1.6 million, which is in 2024. 2024, that includes some of the projected debt service we have for the workout in TIF district number 4, which includes the well, water tower, some iron filtration, and it also includes a jump in the financial support we have to remit to school district 200, which we are required to pay to them some impact fees based upon the impact that TIF has had on their school district. That goes up from the current 2022 amount to them is a little over 61,000, but by 2024 that amount is a little over 600,000. So that would be a big piece of that increase is the support for school district 200.
There may be some miscommunication, Kevin. I think he's looking backward to the year 2020. There was 1.724 expenditures, which netted out to 1.6.
Oh, I'm sorry. I made me looking at the wrong year. My apologies. I was looking at the 1.6 in 2024. So let me look back at 2020. 2020 is, 2020 includes the Lexington Tiff note, original booking of that in the audit as well. There's some tap-on fees that came as part of the Lexington agreement. There was some fee credits for that same project as part of the redevelopment agreement. And then there was also some $673,000 in change worth of support that came from the hotel tax fund, also in support of the Lexington Trace redevelopment agreement. So between that, of the Lexington Trace part of that, that was a little over $1.5 million in total support and accounting entries to support the Lexington Trace redevelopment agreement.
Okay. That's just helpful context to understand kind of the timing of how things play out. All right. No other questions?
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
No questions. Thank you for all the effort that was put in to create this for us.
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
Yes, this is a quite a sheet with a lot of numbers on it. It's kind of hard to digest. I mean, it's a little overwhelming. But I have no questions at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Davalos.
Yes, I was very excited to see this. I think I'm going to put it right into my budget folder for next year. I think it's going to explain a lot of things. So thank you for your team, Kevin, for everything you've done in your team. Just real quickly. So in TIF 4, in 2032, I'm assuming this 5 million, I don't know. I always think about, do you know why that went up there? Is a water and sewer thing or just something anticipated?
Let me get to that chart. Hold on one moment here, please.
It's on the expenditure column in 2032.
2032. That includes part of what we projected as a balloon payment for the debt service on the well tower. It also included some road projects and some engineering that the Public Works Department and the engineers have projected to occur in that year. Let me see if I can get you a little more detail on what that would involve. It involves some Briggs and Estes work as far as construction engineering, water and sewer construction, as well as sidewalk, curb, gutter, and storm sewer construction out there as well. So that was a big part of what happened in that year. Let me see what else they have there. That's a little over 3 million. 32, and again, like I said, also includes that debt service and the engineering. So between all that stuff, the expenditures that year, as you pointed out, are a little over $5 million.
Right, and I guess half of it's balanced out with the nice revenue that year. So actually, it's starting to balance out. It looks like a big number, but if you look at the revenue, it's not too bad. I suppose if you look at TIF 3, my question is, I think it's probably going to be the same sort of thing. 2034 on the expenditure side goes up, and I'm just assuming it's things like you already mentioned for TIF 4. This is in TIF 3.
2034 involves 2034 involves the Ray Street construction and engineering related to that. There is also, let me see what else I have in 32. I think that was the biggest piece of that. There is also some payments we'll be making the school district 200 in there, although they're not near the same size as what we'll be making in TIF 4.
Thank you very much. These little two-sided 2 pages is, I'm gonna put them in some kind of plastic and save them. This is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. I mean, I've already discussed this with staff in more detail. I had a lot of the same questions that Jay and Kathy had. I think the one point that still seems, I suppose, a little bit up in the air, and that the council could give direction on if we had strong feelings about it, has to do with the sort of the back of the page on TIF 4, where the repayment schedule between now and 2028 is sort of divided up in between the different funds that TIF 4 has had to borrow money from for different things. So the question of, which fund is repaid how much in which year could be done in a different order if the council decided that our priorities made that important. So for example, one thing that we discussed about this at the fund balance work group, or I suppose that's not what we're called anymore. Now we're the long-term financial planning work group.
Long-range financial planning, correct.
Yes, and I wish Alderman Wilson was here because he had a lot to say about this as well, and he would probably give us some of his insight. But the one thing that we discussed in some detail had to do with the $200,000 to the hotel fund in 2024, and then approximately the same amount, $198,000 to the water and sewer fund the following year, and whether those should be adjusted or reversed in order to make the payment to the water and sewer fund earlier. And I think some of the discussion for the long-term financial planning work group had to do with the health of that water and sewer fund and the timing of any future rate increases over the next few years between now and 2025, and whether being paid back a little earlier could help change the timing of needed rate increases, or perhaps change the amount of rate increases if it was able to be paid back a little bit sooner. But, sort of give or take 1 year there may not make a great deal of difference. I think staff has put a tremendous amount of work into this. If the members of the City Council have time to look at it in more detail or sort of digest some of these projections, I know that staff will be available to answer your questions and we can talk about this again. I think this is far from the last time we'll be looking at these figures, but personally I found them tremendously helpful. It is a tremendous relief to me to know that with our current expected revenue from these TIFs, that the very large negative balances in TIF 4 could be finished being paid back to our other funds as soon as 2028. That was much sooner than I had thought when we began that discussion. So that is great. And I know that TIF 3 is not in that situation. They would be paid back by 2031 at the soonest, according to these schedules. And that is a more difficult situation because that leaves less flexibility between 2031 and the few remaining years before that TIF ends, which is a few years sooner than TIF 4. So there's less wiggle room here to push back repaying our other funds, because if we push back any of these payments as time goes along, there may not be enough time to pay back these loans, and that would not be a good outcome. So a lot of food for thought here, and again, my thanks to staff on that. Okay, Alderman Krischel.
Thanks. No questions. I think my only comment is it's reassuring to look at these numbers and see there is a plan here, right? It's not just trying to pay things back as quickly as possible. You have expenditures that are projected. You're going to have to pay for things along the way, and being able to see those on a piece of paper is very helpful. So thank you very much for this detailed report.
Thank you. Alderman Widener.
Yeah, thank you for the detailed report, and it sounds like the long-range planning group has also weighed in with a number of recommendations and assistance with regard to this. So thanks to that group. I guess my question for Director Dahlstrand is, will this need to be updated, and will we see this report frequently? And if so, how often will it be updated and changed and presented to us?
So thank you, Alderman. It absolutely will be updated as regularly as new information becomes available, and certainly not every time any small piece becomes available. As I mentioned at the outset here, my next update, I would assume, will be toward the end of October when the audit for fiscal year 2021 is done, because then the 2021 numbers would be audited figures. We'll plug those into here. We will also update that with projections when we do the budget for 2023. And we will also then update it when the property tax extension numbers are finalized as well, which would be for 2021. So the goal here, a lot of work has gone into this. Staff again will meet and update the figures. As you mentioned, the long range financial planning group will also be reviewing these as well. And so I think there's going to be a lot of times that you will see these, a lot of times they will be updated. The goal here now would be to maintain these as we move forward, because we don't want to see all this work just sit on a shelf without help anyone involved. We need to know this information both now and for the long term. So this will absolutely not be the final time you see this.
Okay, it gives some great clarity going forward, and I just think if as time goes on, the benefit to the individual taxpayer, like what Alderman Goodman or Chairperson Goodman was saying regarding which payback comes first, whether it's sewer and water or hotel and motel tax. Maybe there'd be some recommendations that would come forward from the long range planning group on that, and that the changes that would benefit the individual taxpayers the most should be that order of payment, I guess. If the benefits are going to be more for individuals, if the water and sewer program was paid back first, then I guess I would favor that being ahead of the hotel and motel tax. But we've got time to think about this and weigh in and develop an idea of what we want to do going forward. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you. Administrator Coakley.
Thank you. I appreciate all the input and comments. And if you think there's a lot of work on these sheets, there's a lot more that Kevin put together with everybody's input in the background that he's pulling up. So we were kind to you and gave you only the summarization for each year, I promise. A couple of quick things. We certainly agree. Now Kevin's talking about several more times a year. I would assure that we would certainly bring it at least once a year with the updates and use it during the budget process at minimum. There may be other times that staff and or with review of the long range financial planning work group, if we can bring something meaningful more than once a year, we certainly will do that. But it should be no less than that because this will change every year with the new EAVs and new development agreements, what have you, what the council will be approving or things happen in the community going forward. Secondly, I completely agree with the comments. We need to certainly work with long-range financial planning. That makes sense. Going forward about which fund to pay back first, we haven't had a lot of time to discuss that. We need to focus more on that. Certainly some good ideas with the water and sewer fund. Those ratepayers may benefit, and it might be more important in the short term than the more broad general taxpayers or the hotel tax fund, but we can work that through and then bring back recommendations. I would think probably during the budget, we could get that prepared and present that during the budget cycle as we do those updates, but that's my thinking right now. The other is I want to make sure my ardent recommendation is that we prioritize paying back the other city funds because there's going to be no end, I'm sure, of worthwhile projects or new development agreements or something that someone asks us for, a new developer, and we want to make sure that our taxpayers, our ratepayers are put in priority. I think that was implied in many of what you said, many things that all of you said, but we want to make sure that we do that. There is obviously the projections show very strong growth in TIF 4 and in TIF 3 at this point. So we have that ability to pay ourselves back, to pay the city back, whether they're the ratepayers or the taxpayers. So just some other comments on that. And thank you again to, I'll echo the thank you to Kevin for compiling all this, but also to Ron and Ron's staff and community development and public works Phil's staff. It was the senior staff that were the faces of that. I missed somebody. Ron, Kevin, John. Yes, I did. I left myself out. Sorry. But behind the scenes, we also had Jamie Clark and John Satter giving input, and I know some others. So it was a group effort. I think we started in earnest last summer. There was this little pandemic that kind of got in the way during the whole process, but and some big development. But anyway, thank you very much. And those are that's my view of going forward. And thank you all for your input.
Thank you, City Administrator. All right, I believe this is an informational only item. There's no action requested on this, but I guess one last chance for anybody who had any more comments or questions. Just pause a moment. It's a big topic. Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, which is our informational updates on the administration, finance, and police department fiscal year 2022 work plans and decision packages, which are in the backup. We'll just go through once to see if anyone has questions. Alderman Anderson.
No questions.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Berry.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Davalos.
No questions, but it was really nice to see how much progress is being made, as the city administrator said, in the middle of a pandemic. So it looks like a lot of things are going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. My comment would be to echo that. There's a lot of great work here that's been updated recently. I had one question for the police chief on item T15. It says that the evidence room audit is ongoing annually. I guess my question was just, audits aren't usually ongoing. Are these surprise audits or scheduled at periodic times?
We do it on a surprise basis. And what we will do, and when I say that these things are ongoing, is that the deputy chief and the evidence custodian, the deputy chief, may go down there on any given day and select 3, 4, 5 items, and then go back and make sure that everything is done properly. The login registry has been completed, and if necessary, reweigh if it's things. And we have special attention that we pay to things that involve narcotics, drugs, firearms, and money. And we will go back and we will do those, and we do that on an ongoing basis. And the reason that we do that is, again, it's a surprise element, but again, it reinforces to everybody to make sure that when you do this, you dot your I's, you cross your T's, you make sure everything is done right. And then every year, annually, we have somebody from the outside come in here, and they can randomly select a number of items, and those items then will be cross-checked and verified against the evidence submission sheet to make sure everything is accurate.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification, Chief.
You're welcome.
All right, Alderman Krischel.
I have no questions, thanks.
And Alderman Wagner.
Sorry. I have no questions. I'm just glad to see the proactive policing, including the bike patrol, is being implemented again. So thank you for that, Chief.
Welcome.
Yes, that's great. And while we have the chief, let's move on to item G, commendations.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A lot of exciting things to report with the police department that are going to be coming up. We have the order in for our body cameras. Hopefully, by the time we meet in July, I'll have a report to you that they will be implemented and out on the street being used on a daily basis, and go forward with that report. To give you a status with some of our personnel, I'll start at the beginning of the month and we'll go through that. In your backup, there's an email that was from May 2nd. That was from a commander on the Naperville Police Department. We went down to assist Naperville with a suicidal subject armed with a knife. Naperville had to deploy pepper ball projectiles, but our officers basically were there to make sure that traffic was maintained in the area. It was at 59 and 88, and they sent a congratulatory letter for that. 2 of our officers were recently selected for the merit SWAT team. I did put that in the weekly report. There were 18 applicants that went through an intensive selection process of interviews that would assess their general ability for that position, followed by physical and firearms proficiency. They then went and passed an 80-hour basic SWAT operator school, and they will now be assigned to a team as a SWAT operator and available for call out. We had Officer McCurris go out on Wednesday night. Villa Park had a domestic related stabbing homicide, and she went as part of the forensic investigation team from Merit to provide her expertise in gathering evidence for that upcoming case. They do have a subject in custody in Villa Park. Last night at about 2:45 in the morning, our public integrity unit, along with the forensic investigation unit, which included one of our officers, Officer McCurris, went to Villa Park for an officer-involved shooting incident, where again, evidence is collected and made sure that the crime scene is not contaminated and it is maintained, and their investigation will continue with the public integrity unit. That information will then go to the state's attorney's office for a final judgment on that. I will have in July an annual report from Merit that I'll be able to share with you. That'll have the number of call-outs, where they occurred throughout the county, and you can see for yourself the efficiency and the value of a group like Merit and the services that they provide throughout the county. And other than that, I guess we haven't been doing anything. But no, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those for you.
Thank you very much, Chief. If anyone has any questions or comments. All right, well, thank you. We have no need tonight for a closed session, so that just leaves us with one more motion.
Alderman Davalos, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Alderman Christian.
Motion by Alderman Davalos, second by Alderman Krischel, I heard. Can we have a roll call?
Alderman Anderson.
Aye.
Alderman Ashore.
Aye.
Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Alderman Davalos.
Aye.
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Alderman Krischel.
Aye.
Alderman Widener.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Alderman Goodman.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Alderman Goodman.